risk. Risk is our business. That's what the Starship is all about.
The way Captain Kirk was written was really terrific. I got to play in Star Trek. I saw death and I saw life. It was a wonderful role.
Star Trek looks confident on screen. Behind the scenes, it was never safe. Not for a single season. A rejected pilot.
Our authority is the United Earth Space Probe Agency.
United Earth?
We're from your future.
Cast removed. Constant cancellation threats. This is the story of a show that survived by accident, not design.
A man from the 20th century coming alive.
Maybe. Heartbeat dropping.
Star Trek didn't start with confidence. It started with a single person stopping it from being canceled before it aired. In the mid-1960s, most networks saw Star Trek as a serious financial risk. A weekly science fiction drama set in space, filled with philosophical debates and unfamiliar ideas, sounded absurd on paper.
I began to see from that you could write about something in science fiction. And so I dreamed up the Star Trek idea so that I could comment on man and society.
The project should have died in development. What kept it breathing was Desilu Studios, run by Lucille Ball. When executives questioned its appeal, when the budget looked impossible, Ball personally backed the show anyway. Not because she loved science fiction, but because she was willing to gamble when everyone else wanted to walk away. Without that intervention, Star Trek ends here. One of television's most enduring franchises exists because someone at the top said yes when it would have been easier and smarter to say no. The show hadn't even begun, and it was already fighting for its life.
I have security clearance, Chief.
Who gave you clearance? I haven't been notified. You're cross-circuiting it.
The cage was rejected. Star Trek had to be rebuilt from scratch. Before Captain Kirk, before the familiar crew, Star Trek existed in a form most audiences never saw.
Sometimes me, I play Captain Kirk of the spaceship. Sometimes other people, but...
The original pilot, The Cage, starred Jeffrey Hunter as Captain Christopher Pike and featured a completely different tone, pacing, and cast. NBC rejected it outright. Too cerebral, too cold, lacking emotional warmth. The pilot was shelved, unseen by the public for years. Rather than abandoning the project, Gene Roddenberry pushed for something almost unheard of, a second pilot. The show was retooled, recast, and softened. William Shatner replaced Hunter. The crew dynamic shifted toward interpersonal conflict. The Star Trek viewers know wasn't the first attempt, it was the revision. What we remember as inevitable was in reality a near miss. And it wasn't just the tone that made NBC uncomfortable.
I apologize for what he said, sir. He's so used to buying and selling people.
I'll handle the conversation.
The network removed a female first officer before episode 1. One of the most radical elements of The Cage wasn't the aliens or the technology, it was a woman as the ship's second in command. Majel Barrett portrayed Number 1, a calm, hyper-competent officer who gave orders without apology. Network executives reacted negatively. The idea of a woman commanding men on a military-style bridge made them uncomfortable. After the pilot was rejected, the character disappeared entirely. The show hadn't even aired yet, and the network was already pulling back. What's fascinating is that Number 1's qualities didn't vanish. Over time, her traits, emotional restraint, intellectual superiority, quiet authority, were absorbed into Spock's character. One boundary was pushed back, even as others would later be crossed. By now, the show still hadn't stabilized. It was being rebuilt while already under threat.
Are you all right, Captain? It's a little dizzy. Here, let me give you a hand.
Can't get through there.
This loyal, computerized half-breed will see about you deserting my ship.
A machine can be computerized, not a man.
Roddenberry tried to escape into a spin-off mid-run. Star Trek never felt secure during its original broadcast. Ratings were uneven, cancellation threats constant, renewal never guaranteed.
There are some names who were the forces behind Star Trek. Obviously, Gene Roddenberry.
That instability shaped creative decisions behind the scenes. During the second season, Roddenberry co-wrote Assignment Earth, an episode designed as a backdoor pilot. It introduced Gary Seven, a mysterious agent operating on 1960s Earth, blending science fiction with espionage drama. The plan was simple. If Star Trek failed, the universe might survive in another form. NBC passed. Assignment Earth became a narrative outlier, interesting, ambitious, and strangely detached from the rest of the series. This wasn't an exception, it was the pattern. Even while airing, the show was preparing its own escape route.
I want to go back. Please!
William Shatner's career almost framed Kirk as a villain. Before the Starfleet uniform, William Shatner played unsettling characters. In The Intruder, he portrayed a racist agitator with disturbing conviction. In The Twilight Zone, a man slowly unraveling after spotting a creature on an airplane wing. Intense, paranoid, deeply uncomfortable.
Bill Shatner, as I say, during the television series, he was a lot of fun. I mean, he kept it light and laughing.
Captain Kirk wasn't an obvious outcome. It was a reinvention. Shatner brought intensity, ego, and volatility to the role. Those qualities could easily have tipped darker. Kirk worked because the show framed him as a leader. Change the framing, and television history might remember him very differently.
And the ladies? Is this your crew, Captain?
Oh, well, no, Captain. This is me cargo.
Harry Mudd almost became his own franchise. Harry Mudd appeared only twice, yet Roddenberry quietly explored building an entire series around him as a space pirate drifting through the galaxy's fringes.
State your correct name for the record. Harry Mudd.
Incorrect.
Harcourt Fenton Mudd.
NBC even expressed interest. The concept never moved forward, largely because Roddenberry lacked time and energy while struggling to keep Star Trek alive. Years later, plans surfaced to bring Mudd back in Star Trek IV and The Next Generation. Those ideas also collapsed. What remains is the sense that one of the franchise's strangest characters almost escaped the Enterprise entirely and carried Star Trek in a very different, morally crooked direction.
Now, fire blind, lay down a pattern.
Driver's pattern. All faces fire.
The show physically hurt its stars. For all its optimism, Star Trek sometimes came at real cost. During The Apple, a practical explosion went catastrophically wrong. The blast sent shockwaves across the set. Actors were rushed to a doctor's office. DeForest Kelley revealed the incident left him with permanent ringing in his ears. Leonard Nimoy suffered lasting hearing damage. William Shatner's already compromised hearing worsened significantly, leaving him with tinnitus for decades. Nothing about Star Trek felt settled, not even basic safety. Television production in the 1960s often prioritized speed and budget over protecting the people making it.
Perhaps we should go back and get you straightened out.
Mr. Sulu, Mr. Spock is under arrest and he's in your custody until we get back to the Enterprise.
The Vulcan Salute, a survival tool disguised as culture. When a show isn't stable, small creative choices matter more than usual. Leonard Nimoy drew the Vulcan Salute from a childhood memory. Orthodox Jewish priests raising their hands during synagogue services.
Live long and prosper. Image of Sirach, father of all we now hold true.
Paired with Live Long and Prosper, it debuted during the second season premiere. Within days, people on the street returned the gesture to Nimoy. A deeply personal memory became one of television's most recognizable symbols.
Within days after it was on the air, I was getting it on the street. People doing this to me, waving to me.
This wasn't just world building, it was identity formation under pressure. The show needed instant recognizability, something audiences could latch onto. The salute gave Star Trek a visual signature it desperately needed to survive.
I have a friend that talks about Earth the same way that you do. Would you like to meet him?
I'm a surgeon, not a psychiatrist.
I'm a doctor, not a repeatable identity in an unstable show. Dr. McCoy's exasperated protests, "I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer," feel perfectly tailored to DeForest Kelley.
I've been thinking about what sort of work I could assign you to.
What do you mean? What sort of work? I'm a doctor.
Not anymore, of course. We don't need you, not as a doctor.
Yet the structure predates Star Trek by decades, appearing in the 1933 film The Kennel Murder Case. Star Trek didn't invent the joke, it refined it. By repeating the line in increasingly absurd situations, the show turned recycled dialogue into a defining character trait. When you're fighting for survival, you need patterns viewers can recognize instantly. McCoy's line gave the show exactly that: repeatable identity in a sea of uncertainty.
My father, an ambassador.
Your father was a computer, like his son.
The fandom didn't follow the plan. Star Trek was designed with Captain Kirk as the central attraction for female viewers. William Shatner was the charismatic lead, the romantic anchor. Then the series aired and something unexpected happened. Audiences, especially women, gravitated towards Spock instead. Fan mail for Leonard Nimoy eclipsed what the studio anticipated. Nimoy later recalled being stunned by the intensity. The fandom didn't follow the marketing plan. They chose the quiet outsider over the confident hero, subtly reshaping Star Trek's identity. Once a show enters the world, its meaning no longer belongs solely to its creators. By now, the show still hadn't stabilized, and even its audience was unpredictable.
Well, you're a police officer. My friend is obviously Chinese.
The fan base was publicly mocked, and it hurt. By the mid-1980s, Star Trek fandom was impossible to ignore. In 1986, William Shatner hosted Saturday Night Live in a sketch where he told obsessive fans to get a life. The moment was satire, but for many fans, it landed as ridicule. What had felt like shared passion suddenly seemed mocked on the national stage. The sketch exposed growing tension between mainstream entertainment and fandom culture, at a time when devotion still carried social stigma. For an entire generation, the joke left a scar that never quite faded.
Commodore, don't you think that...
The budget quietly shaped what you saw. Despite ambitious ideas, Star Trek was produced under strict financial limitations. First season episodes cost roughly $190,000 each, modest even by 1960s standards. As the series continued, the budget tightened further. Sets were reused, effects simplified, costumes stretched beyond their intended lifespan. What viewers interpret as declining quality wasn't creative laziness, it was survival. The show looked rougher because it was being squeezed. The galaxy didn't shrink, the money did.
Hey, go away. I'm cutting in. Not on me.
For the first time, the show's survival wasn't in the network's hands when cancellation loomed after the second season. Star Trek fans organized.
You also had a lot of emotional messages there in Star Trek.
Led by Bijo and John Trimble, viewers launched a massive letter-writing campaign aimed directly at NBC. Thousands of handwritten letters demanded renewal. NBC executives later acknowledged the campaign played a significant role in securing a third season. This was a power shift. Long before social media, Star Trek fans demonstrated that audiences could influence network decisions. The show survived not because of ratings, but because viewers refused to let it disappear quietly. For the first time, NBC was losing control. The interracial kiss crossed a line television had avoided in Plato's Stepchildren. Captain Kirk and Lieutenant Uhura share a kiss. NBC feared backlash, particularly from Southern affiliates. The network asked for alternate takes avoiding the kiss. Those versions were filmed. The original take aired anyway. What made the moment powerful wasn't just that it happened. It was that it aired in a climate of genuine anxiety. The kiss crossed a line television had carefully avoided, and once crossed, it couldn't be undone. NBC still tried to bury it anyway. Even after granting a third season, NBC made decisions that ensured Star Trek would struggle. The budget was cut again. The show was moved to Friday nights at 10 p.m., where viewership was already low. Promotion was minimal. Internally, the series was treated as a problem needing management, not nurturing. Cast and crew sensed the shift immediately. The show wasn't canceled outright. It was boxed in, limited, and slowly starved of support. Survival became less about storytelling and more about endurance.
Any radiation, anything? Negative!
MLK Jr. told Nichelle Nichols to stay because it mattered. Nichelle Nichols seriously considered leaving Star Trek. Like many actors on a constantly threatened show, she questioned whether continuing was worth it.
I remember thinking, whoever that fan is going to have to wait because Dr. Martin Luther King, my leader, is walking toward me, not 10 feet away.
Then Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. urged her not to quit. He reportedly told Nichols that Lieutenant Uhura wasn't just entertainment, it was representation with real consequences. She was visible in a future where black women weren't confined to stereotypes. She was an officer on the bridge, treated as intelligent and essential. Nichols later credited that conversation as a turning point. It reframed her job from acting work into something larger, a signal to millions about who could belong in the future.
Sakura's office down there.
Yes.
What about the hostages? Talk. Talk.
I'm together 200 more?
Some episodes aged so badly, they're still debated. Not every episode holds up. The Paradise Syndrome is frequently criticized for portraying native characters through stereotypes that feel painfully dated and culturally careless. What makes this uncomfortable isn't simply that it exists, it's that it sits inside a series remembered for empathy and enlightenment. The same show that pushed boundaries could still fall into old Hollywood habits when depicting cultures it didn't understand. That contradiction remains part of the legacy.
Now, if you don't mind telling.
One episode was too radioactive for German TV for decades. Patterns of Force uses Nazi imagery as part of its plot. In Germany, it was reportedly kept off television for decades, only returning in the mid-1990s. Imagery tied to Nazism carries cultural weight in Germany, fundamentally different from American processing. The episode may have warned against authoritarianism, but the visual symbols crossed into taboo territory. Star Trek collided with history in a way science fiction framing couldn't smooth over.
Andrea.
The finale betrayed its own ideals. The original series ends with Turnabout Intruder, notorious for implying women can't be starship captains, presented as accepted truth in the Star Trek universe. For a series praised as forward-thinking, the episode lands like betrayal. It's uncomfortable not just because of what it says, but because it's the final note. After years of bold ideas and moral ambition, the show signs off with something regressive, even embarrassing. For some viewers, it's the hardest episode to defend.
Everything's all right now.
It was canceled right before the real space age peaked. And then comes the timing that makes everything feel almost cruel. Star Trek was canceled in 1969, just as the real world reached its greatest space milestone. The show that taught audiences to imagine humanity among the stars ended right before people would actually walk on the moon. The series that dreamed about the future didn't survive long enough to see the public catch up to its sense of possibility. Yet, in a strange way, that cancellation helped create the legend. The show didn't fade slowly, it ended abruptly, leaving the story unfinished. Then it grew bigger in reruns, in fandom, and in cultural memory than it ever was during its first broadcast. Of course this happened.